welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Day Darling. I should see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today. As I turn up my mic gainers, again, I find myself recording a very late night episode. This one isn't because I forgot, this one is very much self-imposed. I got very distracted. So, basically, I'm not sure if people remember an old YouTube channel called Smosh, way back in the day, which was a comedy duo between two people, Ian and Anthony. I made a lot, they got famous for their Pokemon song parody thing sing-along, but we'll come back a second. Good evening, everyone. I'm here with a late night broadcast. Right now in Fawnhallow is 2:09 AM on what should be Friday, July 25th, 2025. But yes, recently, as you know, I watch a lot of Dropout stuff, and there are people there's a lot of cross-collaboration from the people who now run Smosh. It's not just Ian and Anthony anymore. They have a whole team. It's like a conglomerate or something. But a lot of people have been appearing on Dropout shows, and I was like, oh, they're pretty cool. And then, I saw some recommendations where it's some people from Dropout appearing on their stuff, and I was like, okay, let's see what's going on here. And it's actually, it's just more stuff to consume, isn't it? I think the vibe of Smosh is a bit different from Dropout. Dropout feels like very sort of organised things, while Smosh is also organised, but it also has the vibe of friends playing games together, having fun, I suppose. But they do a lot of board game stuff, it seems, or tabletop games, which I think is nice, because I don't think it's different, I think, from an actual tabletop channel in a sense, because they're not all experts. It feels maybe a bit more representative, or average people playing games, which is probably what I like to think what my friend group would be like. So it gives a better reflection of how it is, I think. But they're also pretty funny. I've seen a few of their you laugh, you lose challenges. Sorry, that's probably really loud, me drinking water this time, but anyway, not the point. I haven't watched all their videos or anything. I've only watched a sample, mainly because it's amusing, I suppose. But I was checking out some of the videos, and then I saw some werewolf stuff, and I'm werewolf, One Night Ultimate Werewolf is one of my favourite tabletop games, to the extent that I definitely played it to death, essentially. Played so much of it. But I genuinely love it. Its design and everything, and the roles in it are really super fun. I'd highly recommend people check it out if they want a sort of role social deception sort of game. But yeah, I've just played an extreme amount of it. There was one time we went on holiday, basically, as we were leaving secondary school, and played it almost every single day, just have a thing, to the point I very much got sick of it. I'll be totally real with you. And then I didn't want to play it for a while, and then I kind of got back on it, and I'm just okay, I play it sometimes. It's not a burning desire, but it is, in classic me fashion, a good appreciation for the design of the game. And it turns out they did stuff, but then I stumbled upon they've played a game called Werewords. So it turns out BZ Games, the people who made One Night Ultimate Werewolf, has done a lot more games, and they've included doing a variant of Werewolf called Werewords. And I actually really like the design of this game. It's essentially, a word guessing game, but with sort of werewolf-like mechanics put on top. So it's sort of crossed with social deception in a way. But the general idea is basically one person is the mayor, and they have to get the villagers to guess the secret word. The thing is, someone else is also playing a werewolf, and they're trying to mislead the villagers from guessing the secret word. Someone's playing a seer, and they are also trying to help the person guess the secret word. But the thing is, everyone can only ask yes/no questions. No one knows any other roles apart from everyone knows publicly who the mayor is. And then that, by itself, is fine. I do like that sort of thing because it kind of reminds me of things like Blabberround or Jackbox, which is probably my favourite Jackbox game. And bizarrely, only is up to 6 players, when really it should definitely be a game which you can do up to 10 or something. But whatever. It's kind of like word-based charades, I suppose. But those things are fun because it's quite collaborative. But this one adds a layer of a layer of intrigue over the top of it at the same time, which makes it interesting. Because I think having someone intentionally trying to mislead and then someone intentionally trying to help the group is cool, like with the simple werewolf roles. But the way they make it actually very interesting, rather than it just being like, oh, Vizier just guesses a word straight at the beginning and you win, is the different sort of end conditions of a game. Because you only have so many yes-no questions that you can ask before you run out of questions, essentially. I don't know how many it is, it looks like it's like 50 or something. So that then gives a werewolf a different strategy of, like, instead of just misleading, they can also burn through the questions as well. And Vizier, you'll see why Vizier can't guess immediately, but Vizier wants to sort of also try and make sure that the resources you have, that someone guesses it by the time. But the reason that Vizier can't just say everything immediately is because if the villagers guess the word, then the werewolf has one last opportunity to try and win again, is they get the opportunity to try and guess who Vizier was. So Vizier can't be too obvious, because if Vizier just up and says a word like right at the beginning, then werewolf is going to be like, you're obviously Vizier, and then the werewolf's going to win. So Vizier needs to sort of, which I'm like, this is very nice design to make it sort of work, is Vizier will know what the word is, but has to basically try and guide others into guessing a word instead of themselves, otherwise it looks too obvious from their perspective. It looks like they know what the word is, which they don't want to reveal, essentially. And that's super cool, while the werewolf is there trying to mislead at the same time. But the thing is, a werewolf can't mislead too much, because if they mislead too much and either time runs out or they don't, they run out of questions, then everyone gets a minute to try and, you know, werewolf style, and vote on who they thought the werewolf was. And I'm just like, that is such a brilliant, neat design. It's so simple, but the general idea of it is just so neat, because it basically means like, okay, yeah, you have a mayor who's basically like a game master in a sense, and then you have villagers who's like everyone else playing, but then you have a seer who is like, okay, they have perfect knowledge. The werewolf also has perfect knowledge, well, not perfect knowledge, but a lot of knowledge of what the answer is, but neither of them can immediately play in a way which reveals their hand. Like, Vizier can't just guess what the word is, and the werewolf can't just intentionally block everything. Why? Because if Vizier reveals who they are, then their win condition, which is guessing a word, means that werewolf now has a really easy time of guessing who they are. And the same with werewolf. If a werewolf plays too well distracting and running out all the guesses, then the werewolf's win condition gives one final shot to all the villagers to be able to basically point them out. What I'm trying to say is, what Vizier is trying to do, if they do it too well, makes it too how about this, is the win condition for both Vizier and the werewolf has a caveat that once they achieve their win condition, the opposing team has one final shot to guess who they are. So if they achieve their win condition too well, make it too obvious that they're the one pushing for that win condition, then the opposing team can identify them too easily. So it's sort of just like, here's your win condition, now you need to achieve it while being as subtle as possible. And I'm like, what a brilliant design. Is it a game I'll pick up? Maybe, I don't know. We don't tend to play too many of these sort of like board game, tabletop games too much anymore, and I don't mean that necessarily as like a bad thing. I mean, we're not always like, as a friend group, like here together. There's a lot of different things to play, but I'm just like, I can't help but appreciate, you know, the game designer in me, for someone who doesn't design games, can't help but appreciate things like that, where I'm just like, what a neat little way of wrapping that, like, the way you play that game up. Like, it's just so neat, a way of like deciding how to design that game, that I can't help but appreciate it. And I think it sounds pretty fun, because it sounds also like quite a collaborative game at the same time. There's only like one in whatever many games that you end up sort of running against the other people, I suppose, but you also have your own game you're playing of trying to suss out who Vizier is. So it's very, very neat. Like, that's one of the reasons I like One Night Ultimate Werewolf so much, is while I do like Mafia and Werewolf as like a social game, I don't like it for the game aspect, I like it for the social aspect. I personally think that base Mafia and base Werewolf when it's just villagers and mafia and villagers and werewolf is actually quite boring, in my opinion. And that's probably me just being like, oh, you have no agency, it's hard to discover anything because you have no information essentially to work with. You're just basically going off vibes. So I like the upgraded versions of werewolf and mafia one of them roles, but most of the time the roles can't get too complex and not that interesting. Like, sure, like seer or sheriff, fine. And then you often things have like doctor or bodyguard. It's like, okay, that's okay as well. But the thing which I really like is One Night Ultimate Werewolf has a whole plethora of really interesting roles which really shake up the game. Like, you can make the game absolutely super chaotic if you put like Robo Troublemaker and Village Idiot in, or you can make it really sort of strategically like information based if you put things like Revealer in or Seer, etc, etc. But then you can make things where it's like it could go really sort of flip-floppy and it's like trying to decide like who's got the majority, evils or villains, if you put things like Alpha Wolf or Avalwolf in, or Minion, and I don't know what's another one which can change roles really easily. I don't know, but it's very customizable because then you can like nerf things as well. Like if a werewolf team's doing too well, okay, well, replace one of the wolves with a dream wolf or whatever it's called. If a werewolf team's struggling a lot, or replace one of the wolves with a mystic wolf or with an alpha wolf. I really appreciate the design which goes into it to allow that sort of level modularity, and basically everyone I've played it with has enjoyed it thoroughly as a game. So much so that I've like explained the rules to it so many times. I've explained it about like 100 different times. Okay, maybe not that many, probably dozens of different times, but I almost know by rote now, like exactly how every role works and how to do things. So I'm glad to see that there is something which I think, I quite like the concept of Werewords, mainly because I think it's like a puzzle solving game essentially. Like 80% of the time it's a puzzle solving game, and then 20% of the time it's a social deception game, which feels like a nice balance to me personally. Maybe I'll pick it up, again, I don't know. Like really, if anything, my only criticism is like it doesn't really have much to do with werewolf design. I think it only is that because I suppose they've done werewolf, right, and that's kind of like their brand at this point. But I can't help but appreciate that. What nice little design there for the same werewolf and their roles in the word game. Anyway. So yeah, social deception charades, social deception word game. I tend to do like sort of like guessing word games. There's another one which I've been curious to play at some point, but I've never actually seen it to like pick it up, and I also don't think about buying board games that often. So let me be clear. I've probably had many opportunities to actually play this game, but it's also the sort of thing where it's like I don't really think about it that often. Because if you give me a choice, I suppose, between a video game and a board game, a lot of times I would choose a video game. But I do like board games as a sort of like in-person social event, which is why I say I don't like base Mafia. I find very boring as an actual game, but I like it as a social sort of hanging out thing. So most of the times I like to be the narrator, to be honest. But we played it a lot back in sixth form. I remember during like A-level times or something. It's like that and Bananagrams. We played Mafia a decent amount. Because I remember when I first learned about it was by a friend telling me about it, like in maths class or something. But even then, straight at the beginning, I was like, I don't get the point of this game. It sounds like you have no information. This sounds really boring. But he was like, no, it's so fun. And when I played it, I was like, this is fun. But only because of a social element. I don't actually find the game fun. Which is, I think, very me-coded, isn't it? Very Dear Darling coded. Being like an achiever when it comes to games, being like, you don't have rules, there's nothing to actually work out or solve here. There's no way I can engage with this game. When it's not the point. But I think Werewords gives a nice sort of like spin upon it, because now the focus is this achievement oriented thing, but now social deception is like a layer on top of it, rather than it being almost the opposite in One Night Ultimate Werewolf, where social deception is the main part, and then you have a layer of like a logic puzzle on top of it. I wonder if at some point I should like regale the stories I have of One Night Ultimate Werewolf, of like the greatest hit games I've had. I mean, I can give a short summary of one of the greatest werewolf games I had. The thing with One Night Ultimate Werewolf is because people can change teams a lot very often. I remember I can't remember exactly what I did, but the general idea was I was a werewolf. And I pretended, I think I was a solo werewolf, and I pretended essentially that I was alpha wolf, and tried to basically hint to one of my friends that I gave you a werewolf role, help us vote someone else out. And I just remember myself claiming to be a witch, being like, I gave you the role, and then sort of just like very deliberately trying to be like, hey, yes, I gave you the role, and then people were casting suspicions, so then he put together, be like, oh, you know, dear darling, she's a werewolf, gave me a role, I must be a werewolf as well. And I basically recruited Nana through that. Oh, I remember now, it's because he was a mason. And then they had a thing where, like, I can't remember how I figured out he was a mason or something at some point. But then, like, I basically tried to convince him to be like, I made you a werewolf. Help me accuse your other mason. So then when the other mason was like, oh yeah, we're masons, he went, no, we're not. You're a werewolf, or you're like a tanner or something. And then the Civ was like, oh no, the tanner's in the middle. So we were just like, okay, then that person's a werewolf, and we executed him, and I won. And then I felt horrible for the rest of that. For every other game I played afterwards, because I was like, that is ridiculous, that's an insane level of betrayal. But I will say, it was a pretty well played werewolf game. There's probably other games of like massive crazy things which happened. Like I remember one, like absolutely crazy one. We were like, oh yeah, we figured it out, and then we all voted, and then it turns out that the person who was the sentinel, or was it bodyguard? I forgot they were bodyguard and protected them. So then we lost. That was really funny. But yeah, I mean, One Night Ultimate Werewolf has a lot of variations. I think they went too crazy with the variations, because One Night Ultimate Werewolf, good, great, solid base game. Daybreak, fantastic expansion. It involves a lot more complicated roles, which like you can use to spice up your games. I would not recommend putting all of those complicated roles into the same game, because it makes things really crazy. But a lot of them are pretty useful. One Night Ultimate Vampire is okay. I think some of the roles are kind of cool, but the mark system sort of just like, I wasn't a big fan of it, like from the curator. Like I don't love curator, to be honest. Mainly because a lot of the time you get marked and then people just pretend to have like multiple things at once, so they'll turn around, they won't speak all at once, which is like, okay, that's a bit much. So it's like, the mark system is okay. I've only got like One Night Ultimate Aliens, which I thought I didn't actually play and I didn't buy because I was like, this is ridiculous. Because some of the mutations you have are absolutely insane. Like one of them's like you play the night phase twice or something. But props to them for expanding the boundaries. I don't know if there's more of them, more variations. I think there's One Night Ultimate Superheroes, which is essentially just werewolf again, but with superheroes. But yeah, I don't know. I'm having a dive into what I appreciate about games. And I think Werewords might be a good balance. Puzzle solving with a layer of social deception. Who knows? Anyway, on that note, I'm going to round this episode off here. So, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.